This meeting is being recorded.
Brilliant. I think everyone is starting to join. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Access to Finance session. Access to Finance is a programme focused on supporting Irish businesses to access finance and is supported by ourselves at Enterprise Nation, AIB, Bank of Ireland, TSB, SBCI and BPFI. And as I say, it's a programme focused on supporting Irish small businesses to develop their finances. Today we're focused on accessing grants, and we've got a great panel of speakers lined up today. So the agenda today is a Q&A hosted by Johnny Harte, and during the session as well, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So throughout, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A function to ask. So I'll hand over to Johnny, who's going to introduce our speakers today. So over to you, Johnny.
Great, thanks for that, Nick, and welcome everybody. It's great to see all the participants coming in there now. So yeah, as Nick said, the topic for today's Access to Finance webinar is on grants, how to access them, process to go through, stages that you should be looking to start accessing grants. I'm delighted to be joined by a great panel today, very diverse panelists here today, covering everything from people who have gone through the process to people who have the grants and the checks, and to people who help people along the way. So first of all, we're joined by John McGee, who is Head of Enterprise and Economic Development with the local enterprise office in Mayo. John's there with his camera technical difficulties, so we won't see him today. Gillian Baker, who is Senior Development Advisor with Enterprise Ireland, specifically on the entrepreneurship and HPSU operations. Gordon Nocton, who's founder of Tactive. Sandra Hickey, who's the founder of Milkbath, and then Orla Condon, who looks after communications and stakeholder engagement for AIB retail SMEs. So yeah, so we've got a great experienced panel for you today. So do keep the questions coming, if there's anything you want specifically answered. But I think what we're trying to get through today is to kind of show you what's available, how you might start the process, and hopefully get those kind of answers to the questions that you might have, and some advice along the way. And I think the number of signups we've had today really shows the importance of a topic like grants. So we've covered a lot of stuff on these series of webinars, from cash flow planning to investment. So it's kind of logical that the next stage is how you actually go about accessing something like grants. And as companies grow, it's natural that they start looking for financial support to help them along that process. And I think grants are a great way for them to start. So what we might do is you might just it's going to be a very open discussion, and we'll answer some questions along the way if they pop into the chat. But we might start off with maybe approaching, I think we'll start with John. Start with John. So John, well, actually, what we'll do is we'll go through the panelists first and maybe just get a quick introduction from each of them. And I want to start with you, John. So do you want to give us a quick introduction to yourself and what you do and your role in the local enterprise office?
Yeah, thank you, Johnny, and good morning, everybody. And my apologies for my camera not working. It was working a few minutes ago, but I decided to pack up shop. Thank you for the invite and hello to everybody. So I'm Head of Enterprise and Economic Development in Mayo County Council with the local enterprise office here. I'm also chair of the National Network of Local Enterprise Offices. And most people on the call would probably be familiar with the local enterprise office in their local area. But effectively, local enterprise offices are a first-stop shop for people looking for information, support, guidance, advice in relation to either starting or growing a business. And I think that's as applicable whether you're a new entrepreneur starting out on the journey or an experienced person. Very often the local enterprise office is the first-stop shop just to get that sense of whether the LEO can help or to signpost you or to introduce you or to help you along your journey and your progression, in some cases to becoming an Enterprise Ireland client, but typically in relation to growing your business and scaling your business. And we help kind of, I suppose, get from idea to get started, various kinds of grants, which we can talk through this morning, Johnny, as part of the call, but mostly it's that first stop shop for just that general business guidance, advice, mentoring, those software supports leading into harder support in terms of financial grants and other kinds of technical assistance. So we're very happy to be on the call and looking forward to the questions.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, John. Gillian, do you want to give us a quick intro?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Gillian Baker, Senior Development Advisor in HBSU Operations. So I oversee the HBSU inquiries, and it's a great kind of follow on from what John had said there. So what we would see on the HBSU inquiry side is companies that are looking to raise funds and are looking to become an Enterprise Ireland client. And I suppose from experience, what we've seen, companies that have immersed themselves in the startup ecosystem or have gone through the Leo engagement are really good kind of sounding board companies that have come through that whole ecosystem, and they're at a stage then when perhaps they're looking to make investments or they're looking to raise funds, and they probably will have a minimal viable product. They'll have some level of commercial and technical traction. So my role, I suppose, in our particular department would be to work with our local enterprise office colleagues, and also do the assessments to see if the company is actually ready to come into Enterprise Ireland to be onboarded. So every kind of company, I suppose, is bespokely looked at and analysed and assessed just to determine their readiness. That's me.
Great, thanks for that, Gillian. Orla, we might come to you next.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here this morning and delighted to be a sponsor of the Access to Finance programme over the last number of months. We've really seen a lot of great topics covered, and I really like today's topic because often it's kind of the stepping stone you see in a startup from going from side hustle into actually maybe taking this on and it being your business going forward, and might be the opportunity and push that you need when you get that grant to make it your full-time job and follow that passion and achieve all those ambitions that you have for your business. And I suppose we always like to highlight that even though you might kind of touch off John in the Leo and Gillian in the Enterprise Ireland, you always need to start your banking journey at some point as well, and you need to start that kind of banking trail for yourself, and in order to even access the simple things.
Oh, you're back, Orla. You disappeared there for a second.
Oh, sorry about that. So basically, it's never too early to start your journey. And to engage with your local bank, whoever that might be. But yeah, I'm looking forward actually to hearing a lot more about what kind of grants are out there at the moment, any new grants, and be able to signpost them to our customers.
Brilliant. Sandra, might come to you next.
Hi, thanks for having me this morning. I'm Sandra Hickey. I'm founder of Milkbath Limited. We're a micro enterprise in Fingal in North County, Dublin. We started off in 2020, and we've gone through the grant application process successfully, and we're delighted with the support that we received from Enterprise Nation and our local Leo. We started off online, and we've just rolled out to over 20 stockists all over the country and had our first delivery to the USA this week as well. So the supports that have been made available to our business has been fantastic, and I'm delighted to be here to hopefully share some of that information with the guys that are participating.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Sandra, and congratulations. That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Gordon, do you want to give us a quick 30 seconds?
Sure, yeah. I'm Gordon. I'm the founder of Tactive, and we help companies along their journey in terms of getting grants and accessing finance, and also helping with their business strategy. And it's more or less an amalgamation of my past experience, which is accounting, banking, corporate finance, and strategy. And I'm also a lean practitioner as well. So it's all about trying to help companies grow quicker, cheaper, more efficiently. So I jump in there, and I've done I do a lot of mentoring as well, so I'm on a lot of the local enterprise mentoring panels and Enterprise Ireland export ones, and I do a lot of leader stuff as well. And so like in the past 3 years, probably raised about 10 or 12 million in grants for companies, and our success rate is north of 90%. And what we also do for companies is we do like an hour session with them to help them on their grants journey, because everyone's journey is different, to try and point them in the right direction in terms of signposting.
Brilliant. Great stuff, Gordon. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's kick it off. We might go back all to John. And John, you might just give us a quick synopsis of, you know, I know we won't get through them all, but the sort of grants that are available from the local enterprise office, and what you see companies generally going for as a starting point.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. So effectively, my opening pitch, I was saying from startup right the way through to, you know, if you use the Enterprise Ireland tagline, going global. But right at the beginning of the process, I'd like to talk first of all about the kind of soft support, the mentoring, and Gordon mentioned them there. That sort of engagement with just a general business information and advice is massively important, because a lot of the time, let's be frank, if you're a startup and you're looking to see who would be the best place to support me, it's not entirely clear. There isn't one defined roadmap. It can be quite daunting, can be challenging process in relation to, you know, am I an Enterprise Ireland client? I've had very significant plans, and, you know, everybody thinks about, they're not quite sure how to navigate their way through what effectively and very often that can appear like something of an indecipherable maze. And in that context, the pitch is very simple: to talk to Leo with that business. Maybe we can, in terms of assigning a mentor to somebody like Gordon, to come in and just help somebody to map their way through that, because there isn't one size fits all. There isn't one roadmap here that's going to work for everybody. But let's imagine you come in and you've done that. Typically our financial grants, Johnny, are targeted at businesses which are in the manufacturing sector or internationally traded services sectors. So you're making something from jam to software, you know, everything in between, engineering businesses, all sorts of businesses there. And in that context, we can help with feasibility grants to get your initial prototype, the market research done, the technical development work done that you might need to actually get your first iteration of your product in place. Grants up to 15,000 euros are available there. Then you are trading. A priming grant for businesses which are younger than 18 months can provide up to 150,000 euro. Again, at a rate of 50% support. And if you're trading over 18 months, there are business expansion grants, again, from manufacturing and internationally traded services sectors. But those are the key ones kind of at that early stage. But there's a huge amount of support in relation to a really, really important one in recent years, and it has become our trading online voucher support, and that digital investment that needs to be made at an early stage, just in terms of connecting with your market, your processes, your structures, your e-commerce infrastructure, is massively important and has become, I suppose, a go-to support for very, very many companies at the early stage. Now, to get a trading online voucher, you need to be trading for 6 months, but nevertheless, it still is very early stage and a very, very important support. And then as you grow and scale, there are other supports around. We got what I call a technical assistance or micro exporters grant, which is a small grant to help you go to international trade shows. There's an Agile Innovation Fund, which is an Enterprise Ireland managed fund, but the Leos are kind of the portal to that. We can help you with access to microfinance funding and a wide range of things. So again, I'm trying to make that point that the Leos are that first stop shop. And I would say before you talk to anybody else, maybe, obviously you need to talk to your bankers and you need to have that working capital infrastructure in place. But typically at the local level, the Leo is best placed to signpost you most appropriately when you're at the very early beginning of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually, John, because I think a lot of people are under the impression that sometimes you have to actually have a business up and running and perhaps employees and customers and a working product before you can actually, you know, approach your Leo. But that feasibility study grants, it seems to be one that people who are even just on ideation stage could maybe approach Leos about getting some grant support for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't mentioned at all, Johnny, the software support in terms of, I've mentioned the mentoring, but the training, the webinars, all of that. There's a huge wide range of technical support that we can bring to people at that early stage. And you're absolutely right, they don't need to be trading. They just need to have an idea. And in fact, at the very beginning of the entrepreneurial journey, we regularly see people coming in and they'll have an idea around something and they'll say, so is that going to work? And honestly, we don't know. We support your entrepreneurial behaviors, but ultimately, you're going to need a wide range of that sort of expert mentoring and guidance and whatnot to help you along that particular journey. But you don't need to be trading, and you do need assistance and mentoring right at the beginning of that journey.
Mm-hmm. And Sandra, I might come to you then just on that whole process then, and how did you start off? Did you start at that very early stage, or were you a little bit later when you approached Leo?
So like John said, no, I started right from the beginning. The first thing I did was a start your own business boot camp with my local Leo. And that was all, I think they do them in person now, but it was during COVID. So it was all done online.
Right.
And basically that was a fantastic course that we did over 6 weeks that covered right from prototype development all the way through to marketing and getting online. So that was our first port of call, was our local enterprise office.
Okay. And so then you went from that, start the business boot camp. What came after that then?
So then after that, there was mentorship, which I found fantastic. I think one of the biggest struggles for small businesses is we try to wear all the hats, and we try to be, the accountant and the financial advisor and the marketing expert, and it's at the end of the day, it's not possible. So mentorship for me was a huge part of developing the business. I partnered with a marketing expert and also a financial advisor, and then they suggested that I go forward for the priming grant. They were a huge help to me in developing our application, and we were successful in securing priming grant, which allowed us to move from the kitchen table into our own workshop, to employ staff, to get equipment, to pay the rent, to pay salary. It was just a big, huge step for us, and we haven't stopped growing since. So that's where it all started.
Yeah, it sounds brilliant, Sandra. So you got that very early support there to help you get into a position where you're ready to go for the priming, and to help you actually through that application process.
Yeah, and the key for us was kind of making sure that during the application that it's completely thorough, that you include everything that you want to do at your business. And it is daunting, and there is a lot of red tape, in so much as you need to have financial forecasts done for months and months in advance. But you need to be dedicated to what you're doing and focus more so on, for me personally, and I know everyone's experience is different, but for me, it was not what we were doing, but why we were doing it. So the business wasn't, we are in manufacturing and we do want to be internationally traded, but it's more so not what we were producing, but why we were doing it. So the kind of the reason why you're doing your business will stand out on your application more so than your figures and your facts and all that. While they're important, I think the why you're doing it is equally as important. And also sustainability, I think, is a huge aspect of every application for every grant nowadays as well. You need to make sure that you're climate focused, that you're conscious of your impact, and that your carbon footprint comes into every application that you're doing. So that made a huge difference for us as well.
Brilliant. And then Gillian, might come to you. So kind of, I think Sandra's given a great sort of view there of how people move through that process. And do you find that Enterprise Ireland is the logical next step, or you find people coming in at different stages, or maybe some are too early when they come to you and they get directed to Leo? What's the general?
Yeah, so for us, no 2 days are the same. Like, we'll get all sorts of inquiries from all stages of development. And when you think about the startup ecosystem, it's immense. It's huge. You could go to a startup event every night of the night, every night, every night of the week if you wanted to. I think the important thing is, when you have an idea, that concept, you want to trial it out, the best thing to do is to immerse yourself. And fundamentally, as John has said, Sandra has said, the one-stop shop, it's the Leos. You should be maximizing the early stage startup supports from the local enterprise office. In addition to that, the accelerators, the BICs, are all other stakeholders that are really good. So say if you're an entrepreneur and you want to build a team around you, immersing yourself in a community among accelerators, you're going to attract like-minded people as well. In addition to that, the New Frontiers program, which is the National Entrepreneur Development Program, develops, and I think John might have mentioned it, develops that entrepreneurial behavior, that skill set, that strategic capability. And, you know, I'm glad that Orla is here today, because finance is one thing that underpins a growing business. And sometimes entrepreneurs they overlook it. They might see it as a cost as opposed to, you know, an actual fully requirement. And you need to understand your finances. You need to understand why, as Sandra said, why you're doing something. Why are people buying from you? Just to follow on then, I suppose, with the New Frontiers program and obviously immersing yourself with the Leos, if you're at a stage where you're looking to perhaps, you know, scale the business, you're looking to raise funds, perhaps pre-seed, the support's out there, obviously via BICS, private investors, angels, and there's also the pre-seed startup fund, which is another support that Enterprise Ireland would have. So in addition, I suppose I can talk a little bit about that, or maybe I'll wait for another question after that before I go into it in more detail. But ideally, when it's the right time, I suppose, to come into Enterprise Ireland is when you have that kind of market validation. So if it's trials or beta tested, or there's free paying trials, you've got a customer who's actually validated your market. There's a level of traction there that, you know, you've kind of tested that you have a viable product. And perhaps if there's more technical traction that needs to be done, you should be maximizing, say, the innovation, the R&D via the Leos. So as I said earlier on, no two companies are the same. Every development journey is different. It all depends on where you are at. But we would look at it individually and kind of make an assessment there. But our recommendations would be always, you know, the Start in Ireland, the BICS, the accelerators, New Frontiers, the local enterprise office, to ensuring that you're actually getting to a stage where you're really ready to kind of drive it on. Okay, brilliant. Just got a couple of questions that are coming in actually, so we might just go, and one probably might be for you, or you might be able to shed some light on. It says, are the grants only available to trades that have good credit? So it's probably shows the importance of having a good banking relationship, really, does it, maybe to start with?
Yeah, I suppose I think it's all down to what the individual grant is about. I think during COVID, we saw a lot of grants that were there to support businesses, no matter where they were in that journey, whether they were struggling or progressing. So there is a grant available. I think it's all about probably getting in touch with the likes of John to McGee to kind of explore potentially what supports are there when you are struggling. But if you are struggling and you do have a banking relationship, do highlight that to your bank and progress and talk to them. It's never too early to start talking about what support they can give you.
Sure, yeah.
And I'll come in there as well, Johnny, and on that one, if that's okay. I think it's a really, really important question. And I think it's important that people don't put barriers in terms of, well, I'm not ready to engage with a local enterprise office or anybody else. Or, you know, if you are struggling financially, maybe forget about a grant just for now and just go and talk to Leo and get some financial expert mentoring and guidance. It's free, it's confidential, and it'd be massively important in terms of strategically looking at the business, looking at your financial skill sets, looking at maybe somebody that maybe the Leo can work with you on an ongoing basis, just to bring that confidence that you need, maybe to bring somebody in that can actually point you in the right direction and hopefully set you on a path towards financial good practice. So really strong message there is, do talk to your local enterprise office there, because there will be that soft support available. And in time, then maybe you can start thinking about grant support. But if you are struggling financially, go and talk to Leo.
Sure. Okay, great. Gordon, might come to you next. And I think it's something everybody has mentioned is the the financial part of their business and making applications and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, people come to you. Do you find that that's one area that people struggle with or look for most advice on? Or
I suppose everyone's background and journey is different, Johnny, so it all depends on the person themselves, but it is something that I tend to help people with more than others. I suppose it's probably an area of expertise of mine, being an accountant and working in a bank and doing financial projections for the last longer than I'd like to recognize on the call. But
too long.
I suppose I have I have developed an expertise to be able to create a set of financial projections in a fairly efficient way that does help people, and that it tends to be a kind of a mental block for some people that it does help them in terms of that. Yeah, so everyone's different, but yeah. It tends to be one of the things where people sort of look at me with their mouth open and then go, okay, that would have took me 2 years. But some it's easy for them, you know.
Yeah, I think as Sandra said, like it's you know, you're not going to be experts in all different areas. So if you're not an expert in a particular part of your business, you definitely need to get assistance, I think, don't you?
Yeah, and if I was to make an observation in terms of skills gap, I think the most common skills gap with SMEs is probably on the marketing side. It's probably the biggest gap I would see in terms of small businesses and even medium-sized businesses is an absence in terms of marketing. It seems to be more of a universal gap than the finance side.
Okay. And John, I might just ask you, are the particular type of companies you're seeing these days more so than others? Like, is it more manufacturing or technology companies, or is it sort of still a broad range of companies you see coming through?
It's still a very broad range, Johnny, and to a very significant extent, there's an urban-rural divide as well. If you're in the bigger cities, you're more likely to have that, I suppose, that enterprise ecosystem around the tech sector or life sciences sector, depending on where you are in the country. And very often you'll have spin-outs coming from that, and people either going directly down to Ireland or talking to Leo and looking for that early stage startup. And just to comment on something Gillian said earlier, we can't emphasize enough that importance of talking to Leo and them to try to maximize the support from the likes of us before you go to others. Just, you know, sometimes it's free money, sometimes it's easily accessible, and that's really important. But back to sectors, it's very generic, it's very broad. You'll see engineering, you'll see life sciences, we'll see startups in environmental area, the whole area of sustainability, people starting to think about circular economy, those sorts of concepts. And we're still seeing startups in food, we're seeing startups in craft, in engineering. So it genuinely is hugely broad. There are technology companies. We've had recently somebody come in and they're in the cybersecurity space, and this is somebody with a PhD in this space that's kind of moving into it, and there's a massive sort of opportunity in that sector. So it really is hugely varied. It's very, very different. And it ebbs and flows as well, and around the country, and certainly the sectors differ. The rural counties are typically more traditional type. We'll see people in Mayo coming through, and they're in the they're in the agriculture technology and the machinery manufacturing space. We have something of a strength in that sector here, so you'll see people leaving those companies and starting something up. So it's very varied, it's very diverse, and it continues to be exciting. Like, you know, something like 5,700 people last year did start your own business training courses, and that was mentioned earlier, and I think by Sandra, and it is a massively important first step for very many entrepreneurs to do that course, because you'll be introduced to various kinds of experts who will be delivering the course. But for the most part, we always argue that the key part of it is you'll be either in a room or a virtual room or a physical room with 10 or 12 other people who are also starting that journey. And people are also worried and kind of fearful and wondering, am I mad? Is there something in this, or can my idea work? And then you look at the others and you see who also starting, you're thinking, well, you know what, you get confidence from that. And it's a very supportive environment. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of sort of just willingness and goodwill towards people. And I think when you're at the early stage, getting that validation from people, getting that sense of, you know what, others are trying, and I think I can do this. You need to get that confidence. It's really, really important. And a Start Your Own Business course can be influential in doing that. So at just under 6,000 people doing that last year, we know that about 50% of those people will actually start a business. And I think, well, what's the conversion rate there? But for a lot of people, deciding, actually, you know what, this isn't for me, is a good outcome for them. But if you decide that it is for you, then you've opened that door and you become a Leo client, and you can get that access to the broad range of other supports that we have been talking about here this morning.
Yeah, it's amazing, that kind of level of engagement, I think, with those kind of Start Your Own Business courses. Sandra,
sorry, just wanted to go back to something Gordon had said. I know you mentioned that the marketing was lacking in people that you'd been dealing with. And I'm not sure if it's, but for me and the small businesses that I engage with, I'm surrounded by a community of small businesses. It's not so much that we would have a problem with marketing, is that we don't want to shout about our own businesses. So what John was saying there is, it's so important to find your peers, to find your group, to find your tribe. So I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by some amazing female-led businesses through my Starting My Business Bootcamp and online through social media, because being a small business owner is very lonely. You come up with your ideas yourself in your head, in the shower or in your room, and there's no one really to bounce those ideas off unless you are surrounded by people that are just as crazy as you are in following their dreams. And I think once you all kind of start to believe in each other and to pump each other up, that side of it will bring the marketing, because you kind of go, okay, no, this is going to work. I'm going to shout about it. So the marketing mightn't be lacking. It might just be the imposter syndrome that's kind of holding you back from shouting about your business. So it's so important to surround yourself with people that are on the same stage of your journey. So that's, I think, as well where the Leo comes in, and it was really supportive for us. So
brilliant.
I think you could be spot on there. I think I do a lot of lean consultancy. We talk about root causes and symptoms. You know, the root causes of lack of people doing marketing is sometimes a sort of an inherent and lack of ability to promote yourself, or you kind of have those sort of like those kids in secondary school shouting in your ear going, "Do you think you're great, don't you?" You know, you need when you're trying to sell a business, you need to market it. But I do see companies, like I'm dealing with a company now that has 4 million turnover and a marketing spend of 30 grand. You know, you kind of go like, come on, like, you know, that needs to be much higher. Like some of the best companies I've dealt with have huge marketing. Like I deal with like an online retailing clothes guy, and he spends about 25% of his turnover on marketing because he knows it comes back, you know, but like he spent a lot of time in the States. So he understands the marketing concept, but the root cause is probably a level of humility, but the symptom is not enough marketing or not enough getting into it. But it's not universal. Like it's not every company, but it's just a lot of companies that come across. But certainly there's a bit of work to go, and I think certainly celebrating success and getting a group of people together that you really want to see each other succeed is vital.
Might I jump in there to add to that, Johnny? As well,
go ahead. Yeah. John there? No, seem to have lost John. Gillian, I might go to you. I was going to do a follow up there to what Gordon and Sandra were talking about. Like, what do you see as a good application? You know, coming through. Like, is it something that somebody that knows?
Journey.
Is it somebody that knows exactly what they're, you know, looking for the grant for? You know, they've identified, okay, well, I think I need it for the marketing, I think I need it for product development. And does that help when they're a little bit more focused coming to you for that kind of support? I think you're on mute there, Gillian.
So just in terms of HPSU kind of grant supports, the types of grant supports that we would have would be feasibility or mentor. So they're the types of support that you can also get in the Leo side. And then you kind of move into kind of, as I said, the pre-seed and the equity as you're moving up to scale. But in terms of the market validation and, you know, working with a mentor, teasing out, you know, that strategic marketing entry plan, it's really, really critical, really, really important. You might have the best product in the world, but if you haven't validated the market or you haven't got somebody who's willing to actually pay for it, that's going to be the challenge. You're always going to be up against that. And I suppose going back to what Gordon had said, it all depends on the size of the business, what your offering is and who you're trying to target and, you know, what your route to market is. If you're underestimating, I suppose, that marketing spend, you will, you know, inevitably come against challenges. But I suppose that just depends on the business as the business grows. So from a startup perspective, you know, the market validation support is important. We would have support around feasibility, which would be commercially kind of testing the viability of bringing a product or service to market. That's where the supports will be around that, and that will be at 70% grant. So that does obviously help help companies to kind of test the validation really as such. Have I answered that there for you?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that kind of for anyone you know, attending today, like that's to know that like if you were to spend €10,000 on, let's say, some sort of market research or some sort of market penetration work, the potential to get €7,000 of that
Yeah, so
in funding. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
the HBSU feasibility is 70%, and then obviously the company pays the remainder of that.
Mhm.
But you can get that covers salaries, overheads, travel and subsistence, working with the consultant, and then in tandem then like the mentor support as well. So if you were, testing the market validation, if you wanted to put a marketing strategy around that, the supports are there. But ultimately, when you think of that journey, it's like they're incremental steps in terms of moving you forward, moving you on and up the journey. And as I said, like we say it all the time, but no two companies are the same. It depends on your kind of offering. It was interesting to hear, obviously, that there's a vast number of businesses coming through in terms of their manufacturing, international trade services, bespoke kind of artisan businesses. What we've seen is that while it is broad, I suppose 60% will be around kind of the ICT sector. And they've got a level of kind of IP underpinning their offering, and their offering is, purely kind of R&D development as well. But the sustainability agenda is going to be really critical as well. And, companies coming through with sort of sustainability offering is very interesting, it's very exciting to see. So, yeah.
Okay, great. And Orla, what might come to you? So some of the stats we've seen about the number of companies who are going through start your own business programs, and starting up, and then the amount actually who do get to start up. Are you seeing those kind of still that sort of level coming through and actually setting up bank accounts and starting that relationship with banks, or is it more that's a sort of later thing once they've got some sort of prototype ready and they're ready to start and create a company?
I think it varies very much, Johnny, between the different individuals that are starting up the company. Some people are more eager to get their bank account open and in their company name, whereas others are of the opinion that they want to trial it out. They want to test that their product is suitable for the market and test those ideas first. And I suppose it's very difficult for ourselves at the minute, given that there's a high kind of now transition of accounts across to ourselves from Ulster Bank and KBC. So kind of that visibility over who's in that startup space and who's kind of an existing customer in a sense with a business is muddled a little bit at the moment. But I would hope to, and I feel that I think much like Sandra's business, those kind of COVID businesses that were started, we see a lot more of them filtering through now that are actually officially starting their financial journey. And that's great to see that so many of them have come through that kind of difficult period and are really still motoring along.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And Sandra, going back to you, so you've gone through the start your own business, to the mentors, to the priming grant. But what's next on that sort of process for you?
So it's like, for us, it's not the end of the journey by any means. We continue to engage with the Leo, and we engage in a lot of their training courses. So that's like their Green for Micro, which focuses on sustainability. I've recently just completed their exporters program, which educates small businesses on how to find export markets. So we like I said, we recently rolled out to stockists across Ireland. So we're going to brick and mortar stores. That's our next step. And once we've done that, we aim to go to the American market, which we've had a great response from in our first couple of deliveries there. So
that's brilliant.
We continue to be supported by the Leo, because it's not just a startup grant. It's kind of there's expansion grants. There's like the exporters grant. There's continuing supports all the way through, and it's not just on the financial side either. It's mentorship and training that we get most of our support from.
Okay, great. And John, just on that, so what kind of things aren't covered, right? So if somebody is, I don't know, coming to you and looking for support for, I don't know, doing some development work, but offshore or something, that's probably not something that you would cover. But so what other things might not be covered by grants?
I think the greatest misperception that we deal with at a local level, Johnny, is the expectation sometimes that people have is that a grant agency actually gives you working capital. And to be fair, we don't do that at the local enterprise office level or at any level. We're not that cash flow. We're not that. A lot of time people will present and say, I'm just starting and I just need 5,000 or 10,000 to do something. And that's why it's massively important that the conversation happens, so we can actually engage with the business and have them understand what is supportable. As I say, most of our grants are, and national European state aid rules allow us to do certain kinds of grants under the manufacturing, international trade services sector spaces. In that context, businesses which aren't in those sectors are sometimes frustrated with that. But there are other kinds of supports and the mentorship and the training, and sometimes that can be highly technical. And I saw a question earlier about somebody in the tourism and education sectors. And again, the training and the soft supports and the mentoring, all of those soft or non-financial grant supports available from the LEOs are available to any and every sector. And it's just the financial ones that are technically targeted at the business priming grant and the business expansion grant that Sandra has mentioned that are available for the manufacturing ones. So generally engage. It's more, a lot of the time, it's the question is not what's not available or what's not supportable. It's more about just understanding that it isn't a cash flow mechanism. And that sometimes once you get over that, once that understanding is in place, and I just am thrilled to hear Sandra has become almost like a poster child almost for so many of the supports that the LEOs offer. And I think that's massively important, that you don't think of an enterprise support agency as a one-off intervention, but think of an enterprise support agency as a partner as you grow and scale. And ultimately for us as LEOs, the objective is to graduate a company to an Enterprise Ireland client who can then help them scale very significantly and go global, to take that tagline. So rather than thinking about it, Johnny, in terms of what's not supportable, it's more, 95% of that which you need to do to grow and scale is supportable. So begin the conversation rather than work out what isn't eligible. If that makes sense.
Sure. Great. I'll just go to a couple of questions actually while we're here. And this, John, this is probably one for you. Are grants available for tourism and education? I suppose it depends what you're doing within tourism and education more so than the actual sector, does it?
Yeah, that's just what I was touching on there a second ago, that typically it depends on what you mean by a grant. I'm not sure what, when you say tourism sectors or education sector, I'm not sure exactly what you're going to be doing there. But again, the financial mentoring to help you plot a path to financial sustainability in either of those sectors could be as valuable as any grant you get from anybody. So that's somebody to kind of help you understand that particular space. So again, the mentoring and the handholding could be as valuable as any grant that you might get in either of those sectors.
Sure. Yeah. Another question was for Sandra, really. Yeah. Just what the grant you mentioned earlier on, it said the signal was poor, but I think that was the priming grant. Is that right?
Yeah. So
that's
I went through the priming grant process. Looking back, I would have started with the feasibility grant, but we had gone past that stage and we moved straight into priming, and we'll be going for expansion grant in the next 6 months as well. Okay,
fantastic, great. So we're kind of coming towards the end of the session. So before we leave, I suppose two things really. Just want to maybe get the last bit of advice or tips from each person, and maybe more so for Gillian and John. You might kind of let people know where they can get more information or maybe start those conversations. So John, if we start off with you, you might just give us a quick last piece of advice, and then maybe where people can get more information.
The last piece of advice is come talk to us. It's as simple as that. At a local level, there'll be somebody in your county town, come and have a chat with us. All information on local enterprise offices is available on localenterprise.ie. You'll find your local contact details there, and our tagline is "Let's talk business." So come and talk to us. We can help.
Great. And Gillian?
Echoing what John said, I mean, first and foremost, it's a very daunting thing to do, to go out and start a business on your own, and there's so much support out there. The best thing to do is to network, to talk to people, talk to your local enterprise office, engage with the business incubation centres, the accelerators in any community around the country, talk to Enterprise Ireland, talk to us, talk to myself, HBSU Inquiries. We'll get an understanding of where you are on the journey and where you should be along that journey and who to talk to. You can't underestimate the value of mentor supports, feasibilities, to really test that market validation. And, you know, we're here to help. And that's, I think, the most important thing. And don't be afraid to reach out.
Okay, great. And Orla, any last piece of advice, or maybe where people get a bit more information about potentially starting a relationship or get some working capital, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would just say start your business bank account today. I think all the banks have significantly worked on over the last year improving that customer journey online to where you're now opening a business account in 24 hours. So definitely start your business account today, start talking to your local bank and getting that working capital that you might need to start your journey.
Okay, great. And Gordon, any last few tips or tricks?
I think the guys are spot on. Like, talk to your local enterprise office. Like, I think, and Enterprise Ireland. I think like people have a little bit of a fear for them, but genuinely talking to these people, having relations with them, they're attracted to those jobs because they want to help, you know. But if you're a little bit daunted about all that and you need to try and understand what to say to them or what grants are available for you, you can also contact me. Like, I do a service for people where I do signposting and work with people in terms of validating their idea and see if it's worth pursuing, and then what grants are available across their journey, and trying to get that going. But that's
Okay.
not my advice to people.
So Gillian, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, just to I am off mute there, just to say, like, the paperwork, or, you know, a can for, you know, Sandra picked up on it there earlier on, like, you know, it's government funding, and there is, you know, perhaps an onerous perception on the paperwork that you have to fill out. But if you have worked with, say, for instance, a mentor, and you've really developed out what your business plan is, your business plan is ultimately what is going to help you to articulate any application you go for at various stages of development. And that's a key thing to remember. What is your plan? Why are you doing what you're doing? And that should assist you.
Okay, great. And finally, Sandra, any last tips, tricks, advice?
Yeah, just for other small businesses that are thinking of embarking on this journey, I would just say don't let the fear hold you back. I know for me personally, when I bounced the idea off family, they were terrified, and most people that are close to you will want you to stay in a safe, stable job and not do crazy things like run your own business. But if you're waking up thinking about your idea, then you need to just go for it. And if you are just looking online, it can seem daunting when you're going into the enterprise, you know, information packs. They mention, you know, cash flow forecast. Mention you can close the laptop and be put off. I would just say just pick up the phone instead and make that first contact. You'll be partnered with a mentor that's going to talk you through the process and bring your dream to life. So just don't be put off. Just go for it.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks everybody for joining us today. I think some of the things to take away from the conversations is definitely get in contact early. Make use of your network. You know, if you're even thinking about that first application to get a mentor or consultant to help you with any grants, you know, you'll get some great advice, I think, from your network and sort of communities. And yeah, and don't be too daunted by the whole process. I think it's there to help you. They're not trying to put barriers in your way. They're trying to help you get started and help you fund your business and grow the business. So definitely get in touch as soon as possible. So thanks again to all the panelists for taking the time out today. I think it's been very informative. I think everybody on the call will have left here today now with a far better idea of the process and what they have to do and what's available for them. I think we've given you an idea of where you should start and how to get in contact with the various local enterprise offices in Enterprise Ireland. So again, just thanks everybody for attending today. If you have any follow-up questions at all, just let us know. But over to you, Nick, to close it out.
Cheers, Johnny, and thanks for hosting today's session. Not easy with so many panelists, but I think because grants is such a broad topic, it's so good to get a range of opinions and advice from all business support organizations. So thanks for Johnny for hosting, and thanks for the panelists. All of your insights were really, really helpful, and no doubt will help business with the topic of grants. So thanks everyone. Our next webinar is at the end of next month on financial metrics. So we'll share out the details to sign up for that as well. And we'll also share today's recording as well. So if you want to look back on any points, we'll share the recording in a follow-up email this week. So thanks everyone for joining. Great questions, and thanks again to the panelists, and hopefully we'll see you soon on a webinar very soon. So thanks all.
Great, thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.